Thank you, choir. Y'all have added a lot to our morning. Thank you very much for that. I know it isn't easy. Y'all practice a lot to be ready, and we just come here and lap it up and then say thank you. So thank you. You know, it was really great. And also thanks for my birthday best wishes. You know, this is the third time I've had a decade-long zero birthday in this place. So that's a long time. Yeah, so thank you. Anyway, belonging is what we've been talking about, and today we're talking about it again. I just want to start off with a quote from Brené Brown. As many of you know, Brené Brown has talked a lot about vulnerability. And in this little quote, she's talking about the need to be authentic. And if you want to belong, how are they going to know who you are if you don't show them, right? So how can they accept you if you don't show yourself, right? So let's hear this. This is because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. Now that last sentence really struck me. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our own sense of self-acceptance. So if you think about it, it is probably the biggest hurdle many of us face is how do we accept ourselves? There is easily in this country, I think, a tendency, especially lately with when we compare ourselves online to the Facebook or TikTok image they put out there, we compare ourselves against that. Pretty easy to find fault with ourselves, isn't it? You know, maybe you just compare yourself with where you thought you would be at this time. Or maybe you compare yourself to where you were at one time. But this idea of comparison can be so toxic and difficult for us to come to a place of deep self-acceptance. And self-acceptance is truly a spiritual quality. It's not just, self-esteem as we tried to pass to our children, but this is deeper. It's like if you can't accept yourself, it's really hard to believe that someone else accepts you more than you accept yourself, right? It's really hard to belong to somebody when you don't belong to yourself. And so we're invited by this quote to take a risk to show ourselves who we are when we're with other people, to be honest, to be courageous enough to actually be in public the honest and true self of who you are. Now that doesn't mean that you bring your worst self to the public. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how many times I've heard that phrase, keeping it real, and all it is keeping it mean. What we really need to do is show also the best of ourselves, of which sometimes we're quite as equally afraid to do that as we are our worst. We don't want to dare to put our best out there in case it is rejected. Could we handle it? So we moderate, mitigate our highest and our lowest in front of people. But there needs to be a sense of honesty if we're ever going to feel like we truly belong. So today, the title of today is We Don't Belong in a Cage. And what is that cage for many of us? It's the cage of conformity to what we hope other people will find acceptable. And so we box ourselves in, we bracket our ambitions, in my case, we don't sing in public. We try to keep it together. And yet there are parts of us that need to be explored in relationship with other people so that we might heal our own thoughts about ourselves. You know, I think in many of these self-help or healing anonymous groups, a lot of it is declaring some of your worst things about yourself in public, and everybody's still right there with you, right? And so that sense of self-acceptance gets woven deeper into the fabric of your being because you've put it out there and you have been well received. You've not only put it out there, the biggest and nastiest one you've ever done, only to be trumped by the next person. And so you go, oh, we're all like this to some degree. And so when you do that, you have liberated a bit of energy that you now have for your own healing and betterment. You know, you're freer. You're out of a little bit more out of the cage. And, you know, when you're in that cage, when you're tightly bound by expectations, how free are you? You know, in some families, it works out really easily, and kids grow up and they feel like they're accepted and they know they belong in the family, and that sense of belonging is the basis for them going forward in the world with confidence and with ease. And in some families, no one ever belongs. It's just alienation up one side and down the others. But in other families, people feel like they belong because they have conformed to the family norm. And yet their sense of belonging is diminished in that because they're doing what they hope their parents will find approving. And instead of feeling as though they are winning, they feel like they're really just faking it. And so this clarity about who we are can sometimes take decades to come about because we have practiced so thoroughly being somebody else's image of what a person should be that we don't get there. And so I think if you want to make real friends, really belong with someone, you need to be yourself. And then you will have accepted yourself. And if by some wild imagination they accept you too, you've hit a home run. You've finally connected your deeper self with another person. And had they shared with you themselves as honestly as you have, now you see them clearly too. And what a sense of belonging you can develop when you know the other person, really know them, at least to the best of your ability. So one cage we have to get out of is trying to be perfect. I've done a really good job of that. It's one of the things I've given myself permission to be, is not perfect. Maybe too much permission, but my mother, who is my example in that, my mother was, she was a good mother, and I definitely felt accepted and loved by my mother. And I have learned many things from her, but one of the things I learned was self-acceptance. She was a master at that. No matter what she did or didn't do, she was still okay. Now, maybe it was because she had her mother, her grandmother, and her older sister taking care of her as a kid, and everything seemed like it was going to work out fine no matter what. But this sense of self-acceptance was her strong suit. And as she got older, it didn't diminish. And one of the things that happened was she also got kind of like some women do when they get old enough. They don't really care what you think anymore. And so she would tell you. And in so doing, she was brought into the hearts of so many people because it was refreshing to have someone be that blunt. She tried to be gracious sometimes. But don't cross her, you know? And so it was a good example of how you can just be yourself and still be liked in your community, right? So that's helped me with not wanting to be perfect, you know, because it wasn't apparently one of her ambitions either. And the other thing I think we should really consider is that if you have a grand ambition, you never make the world better by hiding it. You know, if you really want to be somebody in a particular way, and you go for it, you don't diminish other people. You know, you really begin to, you may push other people to achieve with you, but you don't find acceptance by being less than you are. So don't go for perfectionism, but also don't hide your light under a bushel. Let your light shine. Get it out of the cage. Let it be that person you want to be. You know, the Army's come back with its old tried and true recruiting phrase, be all you can be. It's a great line. You know, if you want to do something, go do it. You know, and if you have to leave where you are to do it, imagine and probably find people who are on the same journey you're with. They will be your companions along that way. You know, I'll talk a little more about myself because it's almost my birthday. But, you know, I left North Carolina when I was 20 years old to go be a trainee on the Grand Canyon. And I had friends here, but I made really deep and profound friends there because we were doing something daring together. And we took physical risk and worked really hard and made very little money together. And it was part of that thing, that difficulty is what bonded us, and that desire to do something that not everybody else was doing, but not caring that no one else was doing it but us. That was a really good bonding thing for us. So if you have something you really want to do, go do it. Even if you feel like you're being the strangest person in your family. Doesn't hurt. That didn't hurt me either. So I invite you to really come out of any cage of either you having to perform for others or your fear of outshining others. Don't bother. Go do what you want to do. Let your light shine, and don't be afraid to be yourself. You know, the title, You Don't Belong in a Cage, it started me thinking of all the ways we block ourselves and get ourselves limited, right? We cage ourselves in, our thought process about ourselves. One of the ways we do this is thinking we are separate from God or the universe. I mean, how many of us, if we were scratched underneath the surface, would say we're really a part of the universe? I mean, most of us feel like we're individual walking around on the surface of the earth, not part of the earth. Visitors on this planet to some degree, like strangers. Yet this body that we have could have only come about in this place by all the universe, as far as we know, going through all the machinations it's done to create atoms of variety enough that the body's complexity could have a way of coming to life. You are part of the universe, and the universe is blessed to have you. I was watching this one, Teal Swan. Teal Swan says, you know you really belong when you can't not belong. when there is nothing they can do to get you out of the group. You can't stop paying dues and be excluded from it. She says, take humanity. You are always human, no matter what you say or do. You're always part of the universe, no matter what you say or do. And if you should think yourself torn apart, you're still, like this piece of paper is still paper, we're still paper. We're still the universe. We still belong. We have always, cannot, ever not belong in this universe. You do belong. And you do belong to the very source that created this universe. If you think about it, most of the things that we see that are not human-made are made by begatting. Right? You know what that means. It comes from the person. It comes out of the animal. It comes off the tree. It comes out of the earth. It is always a part of it. It's not like something that was manipulated and done, tossed off. It is an emanation from it. Emanation rather than manipulation is the nature of reality. You are emanated into being who you are. And that's from the spiritual level and the physical level. And you cannot not belong to God or to the universe. There is no, I don't care how many times you shatter a piece of glass, it's still a piece of glass. How many cups of water you take from the ocean, it's still ocean water. No matter how many people there are, we're all part of that one presence, one power. And that is the secret, the deeper secret of all the spiritual work we do, is that we're really going about remembering, becoming a member again, remembering who you really are. We are a spiritual community, awakening to our divine nature through love, service, and personal transformation. And coming back to service, one of the things that seems to be true is that when human beings help other human beings, they feel like they belong. PTSD is diminished after earthquakes and major catastrophes when you dig in the rubble for your other human beings. Belonging makes you live longer. So many studies are coming out now that belonging, or a sense of loneliness and not belonging, is worse than smoking or diabetes or heart disease for your longevity. Belonging to a church alone decreases your chance of dying. In a 14-year period, this study did on people, 14 years after the study, 46% less deaths for people who attended church than those who don't. So don't worry about it. You're going to live a long time. You're in the right place. We are made to recognize that we have a place on this planet, in this body, in this world. And one way to do it is to be a part of a community. Another way is to volunteer and to give. Those giving acts, those generosities, remind us that we belong, and when you belong, what happens to another happens to you. What you do to another, you're doing to yourself. The belonging means that there is more connection here than manipulation. We're in it together. And so this practice of doing good for others seems to be fundamental to the health of a human being. And we might have, as thinking beings or as spiritual practitioners thought we could get rid of our needs. But we are actually becoming more ourselves when we honor this need of needing to belong and doing things to help others feel like they belong. The best way to feel like you belong is to do something to make another feel like they belong, like they're important, or like you care. And if the Buddha hadn't said that compassion is the way to enlightenment, then maybe we would think it had a limit, but apparently it doesn't. The more you do it, the wiser you become. The more you feel at home, the more you recognize with compassion that you're just like everybody else and they're just like you on the inside, the closer we get to heaven. If you go about looking to prove you don't belong, you surely can, because you can spot differences everywhere. And part of what's I'm beginning to tire of is everyone talking about their differences. Right about now, I think it would be a great help if people started to talk about their similarities and began to look for the similarities, no matter whether you're gay or straight, tall or short, white or black, rich or poor. We are so similar as people. This is more true than our differences. Genetically, we are almost all within like 0.1%, or maybe even less, exactly the same. Let's stop worrying so much about why you're not like me and worry a lot more about why we are exactly the same on the inside. Cut us, we all bleed. Step on our toe, it all hurts. Insult us, it hurts. Love us, it feels good. Doesn't it make us all the same? Aren't we really on the inside? And isn't that why people are pointing out their differences now? So that we will look past them, so that we'll see that they're really people and that things have hurt them? Let's just go right to compassion for everyone. And overcome this habit of focusing on what is different, which is another way of focusing on why we don't belong, and begin to focus on why we are the same. Because the universe, the divine, all of that has created you has created them, and vice versa. We definitely are in this together. And if this planet is to thrive, we'll have to work together. And we'll have to go beyond where we are. As I was saying, preparing for this talk with the title, "We Don't Belong in a Cage," someone sent me a vegan movie. It might be time to consider that as well. That as we have been separated from our animal co-inhabitants of this planet, and as we have been separated from the trees that we've cut down, and as we have been separated from the fish and all of that, in our rush to consume, perhaps we have hardened our hearts too much. And it's time to begin the unwinding of that cage as well. So let us pray. Are we not lucky to have a place to come, to be with people, a place that invites us to be authentic and good, authentic and successful, authentic and loved. And isn't it good that we can take from this resource the inspiration to go into the world and to touch others with the same intent? We are authentic with them, and we let them be authentic with us. We are compassionate with them, and we recognize our common humanity. We are wise, and we remember that all of life is of one source, and we belong here. And none of our weaknesses, nor the things we're ashamed of, can truly separate us. For paper is paper, ocean water is ocean water, and people are people. And so it is. Amen. I hope you got something out of today's service. We intend to bring you things that will help you in your life become more of who you want to be, give you the freedom of forgiveness and the hope of expectancy that your life will unfold in a way that brings you joy, happiness, and is a contribution to the world. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, please go to unitytriangle.org, hit the donate button, and it will lead you into an easy way of doing that. We thank you for your attention and look forward to seeing you again here.